The Damim standing near Miria are surprised by how many newcomers have gathered. Quite a few of them do not even come from noble families. Lion human named Riaz greets Miria casually. He mentions that it is unexpected to see her attending the welcome ceremony in person. He suddenly notices and, inferior sitting beside the faculty and nearly chokes. Completely loses his composure when Miria reveals that the inferior is actually the new teacher. He asks Riaz for his honest first impression based purely on appearance. Bluntly describes the guy as an average nobody with no wife and no life. She admits that was her initial judgment too, feeling multiple stares drilling into him, and quickly realizes he cannot start investigating the academy too openly from day one. For anything else, he needs to rebrand his image from a WH. Right now, it feels like he has a giant target painted on his back. After the ceremony concludes, it is finally time for his first class. Meanwhile, the Rulagita gathers the senior students and announces that regular classes are officially back in session. He bluntly warns them not to fall behind the promising new talents who joined this year. He angrily demands to know why most of the class is absent. The old man smiles on the inside, fully aware that many of them would rather die than sit through a lesson taught by an inferior. The greasy rat even went out of his way to spread the word that today's lecture would be handled by Jin. Surprisingly, our professor does not seem bothered in the slightest. He confidently stands at the podium and introduces himself as the new spirit techniques instructor. Without missing a beat, Riaz shamelessly asks whether he truly has what it takes to teach the most elite class in the academy. The boy responds with a calm smile, saying they will find out soon enough. He even tells the lion demi-human that he is free to leave if the class proves beneath him. Tells the students they must never use the supreme power against humans under any circumstance. To clarify his reasoning, he explains that the supreme power was designed to suppress the regeneration abilities of inhibitors. However, humans recover normally after being hurt, revealing that its true purpose was always to eliminate invaders. During that, some loudmouth at the back starts trash talking, calling him soft because he supposedly lacks the supreme power. Brad insists he has every right to use his strength, however the abyss he pleases. Fujin invites him to test whether he is truly as weak as claimed. Right there in the middle of class, he tells the student to hit him with his strongest move. Kid grins arrogantly, declaring you will never attend class again if the professor so much as scratches him. Seizing the opportunity, he conjures a lightning spear crackling with energy. Even the Rulagita tenses up, worried the classroom might not survive such a reckless attack. Without hesitation, the student launches the spear straight at Jin. He up a massive cloud of dust across the room. Everyone assumed the inferior got destroyed. Jams into the wall behind him, barely missing his ugly mug. Jin calmly states that the sword could have pierced him completely if he truly intended to end him. With that, he delivers his first lesson of the semester. Never judge someone purely by appearance. He watches in silence, wondering if that technique even qualified as a spirit art. Professor Jin continues smoothly, explaining that inferior are labeled that way because they are considered weak. Then, as someone clearly leagues above them, he asks what that would make him. Zora surges to its peak as he answers his own question. That, he declares, is what you call a teacher. Next, he delivers a second lesson. He asks the same kid if he knows the criteria required to activate spirit arts. Do you like it is common knowledge? The student answers that it all comes down to vivid imagination. If you picture something clearly enough, the spirits will carry it out. Professor Jin agrees that imagination matters, but adds that there's one critical element they are all missing. Explains that spirits respond to different wavelengths, and they are what really trigger their actions. There are 8 primary wavelengths in total, among them ignition discharge. Among them, Einds, discharge, healing, and freezing are the foremost people know. However, gravity control, light control, atmosphere control, spatial manipulation also exist. The ruler get near a choke seeing him use all 8 of them so casually. With that revelation, our boy formally begins his first real lecture. Later that evening, he contemplates where to start his investigation into the academy's secrets. The campus is crowded with students at every corner. After the display in class, he's the main topic of discussion. If he wants answers, he needs access to somewhere students are not allowed to enter. On his way, he crosses paths with Miria. Without hesitation, she bluntly asks him to admit who he truly is. He responds by asking how he could be anything other than the so-called inferior everyone knows him as. She conceives that would make sense. Not for his ability to command all 8 spirit arts effortlessly. Not even most demi-humans are capable of that. Her boy shrugs and tells her it is not that complicated, comparing it to switching tabs between different wavelengths. Of course, he knows it's more complex in practice than it sounds. She requests they continue the conversation somewhere. It's alone she repeats her question about who he is. This time he claims he's simply a human who was placed in cold sleep beneath Kanal village for a few million years. To humor him, she asks what he supposedly did before hibernation. He answers honestly that he served as a special forces agent for his country. Even though millennia have passed, remembers those days vividly. But they happened only a few years ago. Curious, she presses further, asking why someone who fought for his nation would be sealed away in cold sleep. He feels sad, admitting he failed his mission. He truly believed that if he pushed himself far enough, he could save everyone. But he failed in the end, and he lost everything. He also confesses that becoming a professor was not random. He needs the influence of the Alton family. Moving on, he asks her where they're headed. She soon leads him to a dusty, rundown room. Explaining it used to be a storage space where instructors kept their teaching supplies. On one of the shelves, an owl statue immediately catches his attention. He asks what her real reason was for bringing him here. Maria admits she's been investigating the strange, empty space look. Without wasting a second, Professor Jin casually reaches out and grabs the owl statue. She sights him in confusion, wondering why he's pinning a dusty old decoration. The moment he twists it slightly, the bookshelf slide apart, revealing a hidden passage leading deeper inside. Calmly congratulates her on being correct about the existence of a secret room. Uriah is left speechless, unable to understand how he solved the mechanism so quickly. Professor Cool explains that he noticed the owl was the only clean object in a room buried under thick layers of dust. After that, he tells her to remain behind while he goes in to investigate the suspicious chamber alone. Surprised, Miria firmly states she will be accompanying him. He reminds her there could be a dangerous invader inside, and he might not be able to protect her. The blonde makes it clear her skills are not to be understood. She confidently claims she stands leagues above everyone else in her class, with only her brother possibly surpassing her skill. During that, he decides to take her at her word. The two of them carefully descend the decrepit staircase. Uriah quietly appreciates how convenient it is to command light so effortlessly in total darkness, and casually jokes out loud that the place feels like the perfect dungeon for monsters to spawn in a fantasy game, leaving the girl confused by his gamer reference. Curious again, she brings up his backstory once more. She asks if he already has a suspect in mind. Hunting down threats was supposedly his specialty. He cannot help but feel amused at how quickly she accepted his unbelievable story. As a small reward for her trust, he reveals that he has a strong suspicion the ruler Redman might be involved somehow. She immediately asks why he is so certain. Professor Jin explains that while the man appears charismatic during lectures, there's something deeply unsettling about him when he's alone. In those quiet moments, the greasy villain gives off the vibe of someone definitely plotting something shady. He explains that this kind of behavior is common among people who are completely different from the persona they present to the world. On top of that, he found it pretty obvious that the man is far terribly observant for a teacher. Maria admits she originally suspected the rule Gita instead. Jin dismisses her theory, pointing out that someone with zero control over his emotions can never orchestrate anything truly sinister. To her surprise, he even goes as far as to say that the wrinkly old nutcase is probably decent at heart. At last, the two reach the bottom of the staircase, which opens into a massive, dust-filled hall. Maria's eyes widen in shock at the enormous labyrinth, hidden directly beneath the academy grounds. Suddenly, Jin stops walking because he is just stunned. Not even in his wildest imagination did he expect to find Kagura's laboratory hidden in a place like this. When Jin looks at the doors protected by nanomachines, which people of this era would simply call spirits, he becomes certain that this must truly be Kagura's laboratory. Maria grows nervous, because even though she had been searching for a long time, she never managed to discover this massive door that had been hidden beneath the academy the entire time. She explains to her that ordinary people would need a special access key to open such a door. Remembers how Hakma inherited the key back in Kodama village, and he believes that someone in this place must have inherited a similar. However, Jin already knows that he himself automatically holds full access, so he calmly raises his hand forward. The lock system immediately recognizes him as the individual with the highest level of authority, and quickly unlocks the door for him. As the large gate slowly opened, Ji wonders if the one trying to overthrow the rulers of this country might also be someone who had access to the place. While Miri still stands there stunned, unable to process that something like this existed right beneath their academy all along. He then asks Jin if he truly did not need a key, and Jin casually remarks that ancient humans are special in that regard. Miria finally begins to believe that Jin's words might be true, and quietly follows him deeper underground into the hidden lab. Inside, they discover several corrupts, locked inside large metal cages. All of them remain completely calm without showing any sign of going wild. Jin remembers the corruptors that the bandits had locked up earlier, and recalls how they also stayed unusually quiet until the moment they were finally released. However, the thing that troubles him the most is the question of how. Anyone could transport such massive corruptors all the way into a place like this without being noticed. Iria admits that her brother's suspicion about this academy might have been correct after all. Suggests that they quietly stay hidden there and wait so they can ambush whoever is responsible for this, since the culprits will surely return to the place sooner or later. However, tells her that instead of standing around and waiting, they should quickly seal the academy and deal with these corruptors first. Iria argues that they cannot allow the mastermind behind this plan to escape, but Dim explains that protecting the students must come first, as if these corruptors start rampaging, it will put every life in the academy at risk. And he mentions that her brother would probably make the same decision. The girl finally agrees with his approach. Jin then adds that he has a bad feeling about all of this, and whenever he gets that feeling, his instincts usually turn out to be correct. Says that he will investigate the laboratory a little further himself, and asks her to go back up and bring her brother so the academy can be placed under curfew, and the students can be protected. For sending her back to the surface, Jin moves deeper into the underground facility, hoping to discover some useful clues. While on the surface, the skinny rat is being mocked for losing to the new tutor. And so, he still calls Jin an inferior species, and blames him for ruining his reputation. Headmaster then walks over to the Rula Gita, tells the skinny rat to stop making strange movements, because the students are starting to feel uncomfortable. She gets totally humiliated by the head map. Before being asked about the Rula Redman, who's been missing since that morning, Headmaster feels overwhelmed, but the fat man's absence only makes her more worried. Just then, she notices a dark cloud forming above the academy, and wonders what has just happened. Meanwhile, Miria rushes toward the surface. As she exits the door, she comes face to face with the ruler Redman, a fat man who had been missing since the morning, wearing a purely evil expression that clearly shows he's up to no good. Back in the lab, and examines some strange reddish portals that appear to pulse as if they are alive. Wonders whether this thing is actually alive. Kagura is the one who created it. A such cube Kagura left behind along with the nano machine injector. Ancient human knows the cube will contain clues to help him understand and resolve the current situation. He quickly activates the cube, and a hologram of Kagura appears, casually holding coffee. Kagura had already expected Jin to reach this facility before anyone else, since this lab is the closest to where he would awaken. Doc explains that in this lab, he was developing a device that humans had never accomplished even hundreds of millions of years ago, and that a small portion of the device's power has been sealed within the injector for Jin to use. Praises himself for the achievement, before finally revealing that the mind-blowing device he's referring to is actually a teleportation device. Never in his wildest imagination did he think Kagura was capable of building something on this scale. But now everything starts clicking into place. Gus mentioned that invaders appeared across the city out of nowhere. Alarm bells start ringing in his head, because whoever owns this device is likely behind everything, especially with an entire zoo's worth of monsters locked up down here. And he notices something off about the mad scientist's recorded message. The original teleportation device was a pure blue color. If that is true, then what did the abyss is this red device? Standing in front of him now? Just as the nearby clock strikes 12, the device activates with a violent hum. Studies himself, bracing for whatever nightmare is about to crawl out of it. Instead, every invader is. It still vashes into thin air. Upon the surface, Argus and the Special Knights witness their worst nightmare unfolding in real time. Hundreds of invaders rain down from the sky onto the royal capital, looking like they just dropped into a battle royale match. Underground, the greasy fat man turns toward Maria with the creepiest smile imaginable. He mockingly asks why she seems so tense and impatient. Maria coldly tells the pig responsible for all this to step aside, unless he's asking for a fight. Genuinely surprised, the ruler Rubman admits he suspected she had been investigating him for quite some time. Fortunately for her, she simply figured it out too late. When Miria demands to know what that means, he calmly declares that the day of judgment has arrived. Bawling potato-sized, revealing he originally planned to delay this event, but the two rats snooping around his laboratory forced his hand. Worse sickly, he realized that the real threat to his grand plan is Jin. Free instinct in his gut warned him that the new instructor would become the biggest headache imaginable, just like Mary's brother. Without needing confirmation, he already knows Jin was the one who uncovered the hidden passage. Sighing he has wasted enough time talking, he concludes it is best to eliminate all witnesses right here. Uria almost laughs at the idea that he believes he can defeat her. A sternly demonic grin spreads across roommates. He boasts about the unmeasurable power he's gathered. What he does not realize is that a girl is quietly creeping up behind him with a pot larger than his own head. Miriam nervously sweats, torn between fear for the girl and doubt over whether this ridiculous plan will actually succeed. Without hesitation, Hawkma swings with everything her tiny arms can muster and smashes the fat villain's load-filled head. Miriam stares at her in shock and wants to know how she even found the place.